I believe it's pretty clear that everybody who watched week 1 of XFL football can acknowledge that it was a huge success. Week 1 was phenomenal, man. I loved it. I watched every game. It was high quality football. It really was. These guys, it's very clear, are right on the edge of NFL talent wise. It's a big step up from college football. Honestly, often college football is hard for me to watch because in college football, you see a world where often a really good team can physically dominate a team that's not as good. Like, for example, I hate watching Alabama play New Mexico State. It's not fun. A lot of times when you see a team like Alabama or Clemson or LSU last year, they play a team and they're just physically dominating, and it's not fun because there's no parity. And I love parity in football, and it's very clear that when you watch the XFL, everybody on the field belongs to be there. And what it does is makes the football focus go to, instead of mismatches physically, it puts the focus on execution. Guys being in the right spot, throwing accuracy, guys having composure. The fine details that make football really fun for me get emphasized when there's parity talent-wise. The XFL not only has a lot of parity talent-wise, it's got really good talent. And a lot of the guys I think we're going to see in this league are probably going to be either on NFL teams coming up next fall, or at least be in the discussion and play in the preseason. That's pretty cool. There's a lot of good talent in the XFL. And guys are hitting, man. I got to admit, when you watch the XFL, guys are playing with a little bit of a different freedom, and not in a dangerous way. I really enjoy. I haven't watched football in a long time where I saw guys just hitting each other and not afraid to get penalized. And it just seems like people in the XFL, the players have permission to hit, and it's a very different mindset. In the NFL, in the NCAA, and college football, you see guys pull up. You see guys are like, it's like defenders are nervous to hit people because the rules are so ambiguous. They're not sure whether they're going to get a penalty or not. The XFL has made it clear we want guys to hit, and I think actually in the process, this is a real thing, in the process of making it acceptable to hit, I think it actually makes the game safer because you have guys who aren't pulling up late. There's no hesitation. They go through the play. Yes, there's big contact, but big contact doesn't necessarily mean big injury. Often in football, you get injured when you pull up, when you slow down, when you're thinking. Because of this, I really think the XFL is really fun to watch, watching these guys hit each other and go full speed through a play. There's no hesitation. Guys are going full tilt, and there's no hesitation. To some degree, I wish I had a way to explain. I don't know how to explain this properly, but when you hesitate, when you slow down in football, that's when you tend to get hurt. And I watched a lot of big collisions over the weekend. I watched all 4 XFL games, and I didn't see any horrible, jarring stuff. I just saw enjoyable, fun hits that were, for the first time in a long time, I was like, wow, I miss watching hitting in football. It is actually really enjoyable watching guys go full tilt the way they did. And the games are fast. I mean, it's perfect. It really is. The shorter play clocks, which forces teams to go faster, creates more possessions. It means that later in games you go, hey, it's not going to be just easy for a team to wind down the clock and steal this game. They got to make plays and get first downs to hold on to the ball if they want to run the clock down. And it's really good for the flow of the game. Having the shorter play clocks, having the game sped up works really well. I love it. And the XFL has gotten so many things right. For the first time in years, I'm watching punt returns. I'm watching kick returns. In the NFL, when there's a kickoff, I literally skip it. I often record games. I'll watch them that way. Like, I usually watch on a 30-minute delay so I can skip through commercials. And I skip a lot of kickoffs because I don't care. It's a touchback 95% of the time. That is not the case in the XFL. The rules in the XFL have encouraged for returns, encouraging safer collisions with the new rules of the new kickoff. It's great. I love it. It's a perfect mix of the new rules, which are safer, and encouraging collisions through returns. It's just perfect, and I really, really enjoy it. I also love the transparency with the refs. There's a camera and microphones on the refs while they're making the decision on a contentious call. A booth review gets filmed now. So the guy making the decision in the booth has to talk through what he's doing on live television. You see the whole process. And when you get to see that, it makes it so much better for a fan because you understand why the decision's being made, why the call that is being called is being decided. It's great. I love it. I'm a big, huge fan of that. I'll say the jerseys are great. My 3 favorite jerseys in the XFL right now are the Houston Roughnecks. Their home jerseys are great. The Dallas Renegades have great home jerseys, and the St. Louis Battlehawks have really cool like white away jerseys with a cool helmet, the gray pants, the white on top. It looks awesome. And the XFL in general has great marketing. Their social media is phenomenal. Whoever runs the XFL Instagram account, it's just at XFL. Oh my gosh. The people running that account, they do a lot of boring stuff that a league would do. Here's our player of the week. Here's a hype video. Here's that. But then they post some memes that are like really good. I saw a Snoop Dogg meme that says, yes, XFL football is happening today. Things like that that are just like the fine touch that I find really good. And I'm really a fan of what the XFL is doing there. It's just outstanding. And having capital has really given the XFL a lot of freedom. There's no money crunch. One of the things that I noticed is that teams are ready to play. And a large part of that is because they did a lot of preseason games. They flew teams around the country to play each other and have practice preseason games. And doing all that costs money. Having a preseason that really wasn't publicized was just a loss to the league. It cost them money to fly players down to Houston, to have a game, to put everybody up in a room. And yes, it's at cost, but because they had that, players were more prepared for week 1, and it paid off big time. So the investment the league's made, and having capital and having money behind the league has allowed for them to have a lot of freedom and made it just a significantly better product. This is clearly, when you compare the Alliance of American Football to the XFL, my friends that play in the league, it's very clear watching the league, the XFL has more money behind it, and it's going a lot farther, and it's given the league more freedom so that the teams can focus on winning football games rather than surviving as an entity, and that's a gigantic, gigantic difference. Money is not an answer to everything, but what it does do is gives you freedom. A lot of people say that money is happiness. Like, this is just an aside. In real life, people say money gives you happiness. It doesn't, but what it does do is gives you freedom. And we're seeing the similar thing with the XFL. The XFL has freedom to do things and put good football, quality football at number 1. And business has taken a backseat to some degree for the coaches, for the players. They can focus on what they're supposed to do and allow the business people to focus on the business side of things. I do need to say the quarterbacks were awesome. There's a big difference between... So my 3 favorite quarterbacks to watch in the XFL are Philip Walker from the Houston Roughnecks, Cardell Jones from the DC Defenders, and Jordan Ta'amu from the St. Louis Battlehawks. All of them can run. And I got to say, if your quarterback isn't mobile, I don't care. I have a harder... Like Aaron Murray from the Tampa Bay Vipers is not fun to watch. It's not good. The big difference between the NFL and the XFL is this right here with quarterbacks. Quarterbacks are able to get away with a lot more in the XFL than they would in the NFL. Receivers are more open. Defenses are just a hair slower, meaning that you can be late and get away with being a little bit late and still complete a pass. You don't have to have perfect timing. You can make up for little errors in decision making because defenses aren't quite as good and quite as fast. But when I watch Aaron Murray, a quarterback at like Tampa Bay, who is an average decision maker, who doesn't have a great arm, and he can't run, I'm done. In the NFL, quarterbacks like Tom Brady are so great and don't need to run because their decision making is impeccable. No quarterback in the XFL has impeccable decision making. So if you're not going to be a great decision maker, you better be able to run because I want reasons to watch you. And if you can't move around even a little bit, like Philip Walker made great decisions for the most part. Jordan Ta'amu did a really great job. But they can move, and even though they're not perfect, and they make pretty good decisions, they're not perfect though, their ability to move makes them so much more watchable. They can extend plays, they can avoid sacks, they can run when they need to. That's what I want to watch in the XFL, is quarterbacks who can run around and are dynamic athletes. So the big difference in the XFL is that success does not directly correlate to the NFL. Again, defenses are, I don't know how to put it other than say they're easier, they're slower. Receivers are open by more. They're more forgiving. You can be a little bit late and still complete a pass. So don't mistake success in the XFL for direct. Don't mistake success in the XFL that could lead to direct success in the NFL. They're a little bit different leagues. Timing is a little bit different. Things are just slower. And so we saw P.J. Walker have a great day. That doesn't mean P.J. Walker could suddenly be a franchise quarterback in the NFL tomorrow. By the way, the best stadium I saw in the XFL was I think it's Audi Park is what it's called, Audi Park in Washington, D.C., Audi Field maybe is what it's called. Audi Field is what it's called. It's a stadium that holds 20,000 people. And the people at the game, there were 17,000 and some odd people that showed up for the game in D.C., and it looked packed. And it's really clear to me that having smaller stadiums is good for the XFL. They need to have more of that. Lean into more of these 20,000 people stadiums. Like I watched the New York Guardians play in MetLife Stadium, and it looked like a lot of people showed up to the game. I mean, the lower bowl was full, but it's jarring to watch when you look up and you see the upper decks completely empty and devoid of people. It's not really fair. Again, you're not going to get MetLife Stadium holds like 82,000 people, something like that. You're not going to get that many people to come to an XFL game. So if you can find a way to, maybe in the future, maybe next year, I have no idea, but playing in empty stadiums is not a great look. The best atmosphere I saw all weekend was in D.C. in a smaller stadium. It was more intimate. It felt packed. The crowd was into it. I want more games in situations like that rather than at gigantic, like Houston has a gigantic empty stadium. Tampa Bay next weekend is probably going to have a gigantic empty stadium. MetLife has a gigantic empty stadium. Nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with the league. A lot of people still showed up. The lower bowl is full, but it's just a jarring look to have in the upper deck be empty. I'm not saying the league's not going to fail or succeed based on the upper deck being empty. It's never going to be full. It's just kind of a weird look. But I do got to acknowledge that the atmosphere in Audi Field was phenomenal in Washington, D.C., and watching that crowd fill up that stadium and just go bonkers was so much fun. Now, so again, lean into intimacy. Intimate settings in the XFL are perfect for the stadiums. The final thing I want to say is that the benefit of a new league is that there's less emotional attachment to the teams. Fans have not had years to build up hate and anger and massive love for their franchise. And for me, that makes the game more fun. I don't resonate very much with the fan side of things. I got a message from a guy on Instagram who said, I've never understood how you feel watching football because I have a favorite team. And the guy said he has a favorite team, and he never understood how I enjoy the NFL because I don't have a favorite team. And then he said, but the XFL has opened my eyes to watching football without a favorite team makes it so much more enjoyable because you can just focus on the game rather than the tensity of needing your team to win. People were just watching because they love football. It's pretty clear the XFL is their whole motto literally is for the love of football. And I think it's a lot healthier to watch football because you like it, because you want to watch the game, rather than because your team needs to win. And there's a prime example of this at the end of halftime in the LA game. The LA Wildcats screwed up an opportunity that cost them a chance to kick a field goal. And it sucked. It was unfortunate. It was mismanaged by the guy snapping the ball. But if that had happened in an Eagles game or in a Cowboys game or in, I don't even know, a New England Patriots game, the world would be over. I mean, people would act like the world ended. And I don't miss that side of the NFL at all. I don't miss the vitriol, the hatred, the deep, intense anger and emotion from fan bases. I don't miss that about the NFL. And I really have enjoyed watching the XFL of people that are like, hey, we don't care. We're happy football's on. We're happy. There's a happier tone. Everyone seems to be far more positive about the XFL. They're just happy and they love football. And for me, that's a much more healthy way to watch football. So I just had to acknowledge that at the end of my takeaways from the XFL. People are enjoying football a lot more than I think. There's a happier tone to the XFL than there is to the NFL because the NFL has years and years of fandom, for better or worse. It's good people spend money. Cowboys fans have a deep, deep passion for their football team. But that also comes with the negative side of when things go wrong or not their way, man, they are kind of nasty, kind of mean, pretty angry. And we don't have that in the XFL. And it makes me really happy. I really, really enjoy watching football without all the vitriol, without all the anger and the hatred. For me, it makes it a way more enjoyable experience to talk about, to cover, and to even watch. It's just more fun for me to follow a league that doesn't have that level of hatred yet. It will someday. It doesn't yet, so appreciate it while you can. People right now are just happy there's football. And that's how I love to watch football. I love it. And the XFL, again, in totality, week one was a massive, massive success.